Hello, future Boilermakers, and welcome to our live Q&A broadcast on YouTube for the Professional Flight major here in the Purdue Polytechnic. Congratulations to our student viewers who have been admitted to this major. We are so glad that you could join us tonight for our panel discussion to give you some insight and information about professional flight. By the way, you're very interested in one of our other aviation majors. We will be discussing those in a separate broadcast coming up on March 8, 2022. Today, we are focusing exclusively on professional flight. I'm Vicki Gilbert, the Recruiting, Placement, and Internship Coordinator here in the School of Aviation and Transportation Technology. Our chief flight instructor is here, along with 2 professors and 2 current students. They will be our panelists, and I will ask them to introduce themselves in a minute. We have several topics and questions that we will ask them, but we also want to know what you want to know. You can submit questions via the YouTube chat window by signing into your Google account and typing them in. Our technical director, John O'Malley, will be monitoring the chat and will try to pass along your questions. If we don't get to your questions tonight, please feel free to send a follow-up email to techrecruit@purdue.edu, and we will respond later on. Before we get on with our discussion topics tonight, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what you teach. Good evening, Lucero. Let's start with you.
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Lucero Duran Trinidad. I am the Chief Flight Instructor of the flight program here at Purdue University. I have been the Chief Flight Instructor for about 1.5 years now, and I actually am a graduate of Purdue University. So I went through the flight program as an undergraduate, got my master's as well in aviation human factors, and now I'm pursuing my PhD in education here at Purdue University as well. So that is me.
Thank you. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Brian Dillman, flight faculty member here at Purdue. I also attended Purdue from 91 through 95. I teach predominantly in the lower division courses, so freshman and sophomore years, although this semester I'm teaching our CFI ground school class. I'm also a designated pilot examiner, and so I do flight tests for students as well.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike Suckow. I'm a professor in the flight program as well. My area is in the turbine transition program, which encompasses year 3 and 4, working with our large aircraft simulation. And my other position is engagement. So I do a lot of work with industry partners, setting up bridge programs, and looking for future opportunities to improve the program and to improve opportunities for graduates. I look forward to talking with you.
Thanks, Mike. For our student panelists, would you please each introduce yourselves and tell us what year you are and where you're from? Raquel, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Raquel Frank. I'm a sophomore in professional flight, and I'm also majoring in airline management as well. And I'm from Moorpark, California.
And last but not least, hi, Brent.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Scott. Like Raquel, I'm a junior in professional flight technology, double majoring in airline management and operations. I'm also a certified flight instructor for flight operations at the university and a teaching assistant in our Hawker Level D simulator. And I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii.
Thanks, Brent. Okay, let's get started by talking about some of the courses in professional flight. Mike, how are most of the major specific courses in the department designed? For example, are they lectures or labs, group projects, case studies?
So we have a mix of theory lecture, but we also have the laboratories. So the lecture portion of the courses might review some of the aircraft systems, some of the systems that either for the Hawker or prepare them for the Airbus or the Boeing. But then the simulation technology, that is the labs that support that. We have the Airbus A320, the Boeing 737-800NG, and the Hawker 900XP, which is a full motion level D device that we were able to acquire from Flight Safety a couple of years ago. So the programs are a mix of theory lecture and combined with lab type experiences.
Thank you. Lucero, how soon do professional flight students get to fly? And also, if you could give us a quick rundown of the aircraft fleet and simulators.
Yeah, so depending on when the student comes in and what course they come in, usually they will start to fly in that first semester of their freshman year. So pretty much could be up to like day 3 of your time here in the semester, or within that first week or second week. So we get you on the aircraft right away. We schedule our flight courses via semester. So a flight course is completed in 1 semester. So we have to get you started right away so you can get through the course and get through the certificates that we offer. As far as the aircraft that we have 18 Piper Archers that we just acquired recently back in 2020. We have also 4 Piper Arrows that we use for our commercial students, or for our students that are going for a commercial certificate, since they are complex aircraft. And we have 2 Piper Seminoles that we use for our multi-engine training to get you a multi-engine multi-engine rating added to your commercial certificate.
Great, thank you. So Raquel and then Brent, what are some of the projects and labs that you have done as part of your coursework?
So in terms of projects, a lot of times I'll be working on case studies with groups within the courses. I find those are super helpful with just understanding different scenarios within flight and how they can affect you. As well as currently in one of my airline management classes, I'm working on running an airline simulation. So actually getting hands-on experience with how an airline operates and learning the behind the scenes of flight as well.
For me, probably the most memorable thing in my journey through Purdue so far has been our Hawker simulator when I went through as a student. It really is a really amazing experience. You know, we do most of our training in small piston aircraft, and having that tool to be able to help us transition into a world where things are moving faster and we're flying higher and really going places and flying a jet aircraft. Not only is it a really valuable experience, I found, but it was also just an amazing amount of fun. It really kept you on your toes and encouraged you to work really closely with your first officer or your captain as you switched out. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me so far. You know, I've also had classes in things like aircraft engines and things like that, and actually being able to go up to an engine that's cut away and looking in and looking at the pistons and the piston rings and the crankshafts and the camshafts and how it all fits together. You know, it's just kind of day in the life of a pro flight student. So I think there's really a great depth to our courses and lab work beyond just getting our certificates.
Mike, what are some new innovations you see coming to the field, and how are those being implemented in the professional flight major?
There's a really an interesting time in the industry right now that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which is called the pilot shortage. And embedded in that pilot shortage is some really robust conversations about how we can improve training, speed training up. So there is work on something called competencies and how those support your certificate work. If you think of your certificate work as stick and rudder, fly the airplane plus or minus airspeed and altitude, but now we're very much layering on top of that the decision-making, communication, teamwork, situational awareness. So there is more dimensions to the quality of the education, and the emerging area is technology, as in virtual realities and mixed realities and those types of platforms that some regulatory bodies in the world have figured out a way to allow that into the program. The FAA is still working on the rulemaking that will allow some of these technologies to be inserted into the curriculum program. So that's an awesome opportunity for research and exploration while you're going through the program to figure out how we can actually use some of these new tools to improve the training footprints going forward.
Excellent, thank you. So Brian, Carrie Thomas has a question. or two actually. Do you have many professional flight students who also participate in Air Force ROTC? And is it manageable with class and flight training schedules, as well as can professional flight be considered a technical major for an ROTC scholarship?
Well, the answer to the first question is yes. We always have a fair number of students. If I were to put numbers to it, we usually have about 15 students in a graduating class that are in some version of ROTC, not just Air Force, but all of the options, so Navy, ROTC as well. So it's definitely manageable. There are it's a busy schedule. ROTC in and of itself is a large time commitment. You have PT in the mornings and you have commitments in the afternoons and evenings. And of course, if you're in the Navy ROTC, you have crews in the summer. So it is a heavy time commitment. So you just have to be disciplined because flight is a heavy time commitment as well. So it is doable to balance both, much like it's doable to balance band in flight and athletics in flight and fraternity and sorority life in flight. Each one of those requires diligence and attentiveness to deadlines and schedules and things of that nature. Now, as far as the technical degree satisfying a requirement for a scholarship with ROTC, that's out of my depth of knowledge as far as whether it does or not. I can tell you that there are students who are on a full ride scholarship with the military through ROTC and are taking flight at the same time. I'm not familiar with the exact mechanism that allows that to facilitate. That's certainly a question I think that would be appropriate for the commanding officer at the ROTC branch here at Purdue for them to be able to address that.
Excellent, thank you. So Lucero, we have several questions about the process of if a student comes in with their private pilot license already, the test out process, and how that affects their commercial instrument training as well as the financial piece to that. Could you answer that question for us?
Yeah, I can answer part of it. As far as the test out process, that's something that I think Brian would be able to better answer since he is actually the one that handles the test out process, but I can definitely answer the other questions about how it affects their certificates and the financial aspects. I believe that's what was asked, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you come in with a private pilot already, you wouldn't be taking the private pilot course. You would actually go past that. So you would start training into our instrument or commercial course that we have set in our part 141 curriculum. So that's where you would start. And you would earn your instrument rating, you would earn your commercial certificate. Then after that, you would move on into the earning the multi-engine rating added to the commercial certificate. So that's kind of where the progression that would be if you already came with a private pilot. As far as the financials are concerned, you would just be saving the flight fee required for the private pilot course. So you wouldn't be paying that. So that would be a less tuition fee that you'd have to pay for. You still have to pay for all the other flight courses that we have to earn the instrument rating in commercial and multi-engine. You just wouldn't pay the instrument. I'm sorry, not the private pilot course.
Yeah, and as far as the credit's concerned, there's two courses that map to our private certificate, AT 14400, which is the ground school, and then AT 14500, which is the flight portion. So having the private certificate, if you bring your certificate in with you and show it to your advisor, they'll make a copy of that, and then they'll submit the paperwork for you to automatically receive credit for AT 145. So there's nothing more to do to receive credit for that course other than show your pilot certificate. In order to receive credit for AT 144, you do have to test out. We offer the test out twice a year. The first time is during Boiler Gold Rush. Usually on the Friday of Boiler Gold Rush, you'll meet in a room and you'll take the test out, which is it's a conglomeration of all of the exams in 144. It doesn't mirror the private written, the FAA private written exactly. It is not a simple another version of that. It does have some questions that are very similar to that, but it does truly assess your knowledge in the area of being a private pilot. The example I always give to people is the four strokes of an internal combustion engine. That's one of the questions. On the private pilot written, that's a multiple choice question where you just find what is the correct answer. On the 144 test out, it's a fill in the blank answer. So you have a space where you actually have to write out. So you have to know what the four strokes are, the intake, compression, power, and exhaust, to be able to get that answer correct. So it tests the same knowledge, but just in a different way that requires you to know the material. So the first time of the test out is in Boiler Gold Rush, that Friday. And then we also offer it in usually the first week of classes in the spring semester. So those are the two times that we offer the class. If you pass that test out, you automatically receive those 4 credits. If you don't, you have to take 144, which is appropriate because if you don't pass the test out, then you don't have the level of knowledge that we really want you to have to be successful in the other courses. So we do there's an online version of 144 that you would take that would allow you to brush up on your knowledge to be able to be successful in future courses.
And a little bit of a follow-up to that, how long must a student hold their private pilot license before classes start? Or is there a requirement?
There's no requirement. Yeah. One day.
Yeah, say one day.
Or the day of. I suppose you could take it that
Absolutely.
day of classes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Lucero, is it difficult to get flight time, and do students fall behind because of timing?
Because of timing? Is that
Yeah.
what you? Okay. So it's not difficult to get flight time. We do whenever we have the students come in for a semester, we schedule out blocks of time throughout the week where the student and their instructor meet for that very specific time. It is 3 times a week that you would meet at a minimum with your instructor to do either a flight or a discussion or a simulator lesson. Aside from that, there are opportunities where you could meet more than that and fly more than just those 3 a week, but you have at least secured three times a week. That's for you and for you to fly or do whatever you need to. We try to make the schedule to be kind of spread out throughout the day so that we don't have like 50 students trying to fly at one time. And we have, so that way we can, utilize our aircraft efficiently, right? So I think the second part was for timing. I don't think I quite understand what was being asked there. So I don't know if maybe you can provide a little more information on what you were trying to ask so I can better answer that question.
And hopefully they will follow up with that. So Brian, what type of support is provided by faculty members for students who may be struggling in courses?
There's lots of opportunities. I mean, not just within pro flight, but across the university. So there's the writing lab, there's math help, there's different groups that are really geared towards be able to support students as they need in whatever area that they need assistance. Specific to flight, I like to think it's a community effort. Each student will have their own flight instructor, and that flight instructor is a one-on-one individual to provide assistance. The contact of the information that we're talking and teaching about and assessing, there's tremendous overlap. So there's opportunity to connect with the faculty individual courses that are covering those areas that can provide additional insight or perspective on the topic that they may be struggling with on the flight line, and vice versa. There's lots of opportunities or situations, I should say, where I've taught a given topic and a student wrestles with it, and when they see it on the flight line with their flight instructor, it all of a sudden clicks. The one thing I would suggest is that it's important for students to be their advocate for getting assistance, and when you are struggling, to reach out to your classmates, reach out to your flight instructor. It could even be a previous flight instructor for a course that you took 2 semesters ago. It can be to a faculty member that you're not currently taking a course with. All of us, from my experience, will come together to be able to provide the assistance that's necessary for the student to be successful. That being said, it is important that the student also come ready to learn and be focused on the effort and the task at hand. Most of us do have a philosophy that we'll work as hard as you're going to work, but we're not going to do the work for you. So that's important to understand as well. So there's many formal systems set up on campus. I would say the universal system that we use within the flight program is a cooperate to graduate. It takes a village to raise a family type of a scenario where we bond together and support each other as we're able to.
Thank you. And so follow up to that, Samuel Levitt would like to know, what are the best resources one could use to study for the 144 test out exam?
So there's two areas that I would focus on: the PHAC, or the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, and the Airplane Flying Handbook. I would heavily emphasize the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. So if you go back through that book and flip through and reference them, the content, those are areas where you definitely would want to focus. The ACS, the Airman Certification Standards, if you go through part 1 of the ACS, that's largely considered the oral. If you go down the list of the knowledge, the risk management, and the skills, largely focusing on the knowledge and risk management pieces, do an honest self-assessment, and that's going to point you to areas that you're strong and that you need more assistance in. Certainly a Sporties test or a GLIME or Shepherd Air can give you a perspective of information. If you are getting the question wrong in Shepherd Air, then you certainly need to brush up on that particular topic. But I guess I would caution that getting the question right in Shepherd Air does not necessarily mean that you're prepped and ready for the content you're going to be asked on the exam.
Thank you. Mike, does professional flight have a senior capstone project requirement, and is it incorporated in the plan of study?
Yes and yes. And I happen to be the instructor for this capstone course. And for the last 4 semesters, we have created a Captainology Tales from the Line podcast requirement. So the students will first half of the semester develop a proposal on a topic of interest, and they will identify a subject matter expert to do the interview. And then the second half of the semester, they will produce the podcast. And it's not for public distribution. They will turn that into me, and then I take that podcast and ship it out to industry advisors. We have folks from multiple airlines, chief pilots, directors of training, line captains, that will actually listen to your podcast and give you a pretty good feedback in about a page and a half. So it helps you develop a network of folks that from industry, and industry get a good sense of what's coming up for future employment opportunities. So that's what we do with the capstone course right now in flight.
Thank you very much. Brian, is there professional work or internship experience requirement, and how do most professional flight students accomplish this?
Yeah, so all of our majors in SATT have an internship requirement. There is a minimum hour requirement, and off the top of my head, I want to say it's 150 hours that they have to be involved in that internship for it to technically qualify as an internship. We encourage in ProFlight our students to get engaged in industry, to make connections, to be able to expand your network. And that, in my opinion, is the best utilization of that requirement within our degree plan. That being said, we do accept flight instructing as an internship. So if you end up instructing for us or another FBO here on campus, Purdue Aviation is the FBO that's on the airport here, you can count flight instructing as the internship as well. I would tend to advise students to keep that in your hip pocket and use that if for whatever reason you can't meet the internship requirement in other ways. But that's essentially what the requirement is, and how I would say most of our students do use the flight instructing opportunity as the internship, largely because building flight time has a double benefit. It satisfies the internship requirement and gets you closer to restricted ATP. But in instances where you can do an internship outside of university, we strongly encourage that.
And can I add to that, Vicki?
Absolutely.
So coming out of our pandemic era here, we are receiving many more phone calls from airlines and industry seeking internship opportunities. So the opportunities for internships are expanding as we come out of this pandemic timeframe for us right now. And they are with airlines that have not historically done internships with us. We're getting into another other sector of the business space, the cargo carriers, in addition to the majors, in addition to the regionals. We're starting to see some 135 operations folks coming in and talking to us about stuff. They're all actively pursuing pipelines for talent development and trying to get early access to folks. So it's a really interesting time in the industry to get connected.
Great, thank you. So we're going to move over to our students, Brent and then Raquel. Could you tell us about your experience with an internship or other real-world experience? Where did you go? How did your studies at Purdue translate into that work experience, as well as what kind of internship opportunities are available? And do you find those at career fairs, or where is that additional information?
Well, I'll square up here. I'm flight instructing for the university, which is, fulfilling my requirement for the for the internship, as Professor Dillman was talking about. That being said, I will say that the opportunities have been pretty bountiful. Vicki actually is the one that sends out a lot of internship opportunities to us. Every week we get an email blast with the kind of happenings in the industry and which companies are coming in to visit with us and talk with us. And there's always at least a few internships on there. As part of my clubs, I've been to United Airlines in Chicago and to Republic Airways down in Indy, and we've talked to them, and I know both of them for sure have flight operations internships, and I have friends that have actually done both of those internships. And just through the career fairs that are now held every semester, companies are also very, very hungry for internships there. So there's really internships wherever you're looking, if that's what you want to do.
I think Brent basically covered everything that I was going to say about it, but honestly, there's never a shortage of opportunities when you're at Purdue. Like Brent was saying, Vicki sends out an email every single week with internship opportunities that have come up. Our career fairs, you have airlines and people within the industry who are there, and they want to talk to Purdue students, and they're going to tell you about the opportunities they have for you to learn about their company and to go work for them. So really, anytime a student is going to be interested, there's going to be an opportunity for them to go out into the industry and gain that experience.
Excellent, thank you. We're going to stick with our students here. So could either of you, Brent or Raquel, tell us the additional application process to double major in professional flight and aviation management, since you've both done that? Raquel?
Raquel,
Yes.
You can go ahead.
I'll go for it. So basically, the process wasn't difficult at all. It was basically talk to your advisor, say, hey, I'm really interested in adding a second major on. They'll be like, okay, cool. What major is it? You let them know. And basically, the next semester after you submit that request in, the registrar, whoever it is, they'll look at your GPA, make sure that you meet the requirements for that second major. And if you meet those requirements, they'll add it on for you. So really simple process.
Yeah. If I can just add to that, I think, Raquel and I are both doing the double major. It's a fairly popular option that a lot of pro flight students will do. I really encourage it. I'm really enjoying it so far. It fits into our plan of study really well. There's a area for a thematic area within our plan of study that we have to do anyway, whether it be a block of electives to kind of dig deeper into something, or do a minor, and the major also satisfies that requirement, the double major within airline management or aviation management or whatever it may be. So I'm still graduating in 4 years, so really not sticking around any longer to do the double major, and I believe Raquel's the exact same way. Really great. I'm enjoying learning not only my flight curriculum, but how airlines are operating a little deeper, and the finances and kind of the whole other hidden world of aviation in the airlines that we don't really get exposed to as pilots, and the other half of what keeps the industry running and everything.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Vicki, can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so one thing to consider, and it largely depends on how much credit you bring in through either AP or dual credit at your high school. And, as Brent mentioned, we have the thematic selective, which is 12 credit hours within our plan of study that you have to utilize in a thematic way to overall support your education as a whole here at Purdue. There is a tipping point where serious consideration for leveraging the opportunity of credits that you have available towards a master's degree could be a better choice than double majoring. Double majoring has its value, so I'm not saying it doesn't, but there is a tipping point where if you're going to add so many more courses to get the double major, you would seriously want to consider taking those extra courses and leveraging it towards a master's degree. Because in instances where you're going to look at either change of career or delving into other areas within the industry that are available to you as you experience what the industry has to offer as a professional pilot. The master's degree in many instances can open up doors that a dual major would not be able to open. So that's something to consider, and it's unique and different for every student because every student brings in different AP credit and has different ideas and focuses and things of that nature. So that's just something I wanted to throw out as a consideration. There are other opportunities than just the dual major. A potential master's degree would be one area that you'd want to consider.
Thanks, Brian. Could you also talk a little bit about the degree in 3 for professional flight for Alexander Taylor?
Yeah, so the degree in 3 is something that we've actually supported ever since I've been at the university. So as I said, I went through Pro Flight in 91 through 95, and we offer a full cohort of flight courses. Well, at least the labs. So all of the flight labs and the sim labs, we offer those in the summer modules. So there's 3 summer modules. Those are 4 weeks long. And we've been doing that, ever since I've been a student. So the ability to complete a degree in 3 has been available to people or to students that are in pro flight for forever, essentially. The degree in 3 was formalized, I should say, formalized into a degree plan that then made it available for people to better understand what the opportunities are. The original format for the degree in 3 required summers for students to be here during that time frame and be able to complete their flight and sim labs. We're actually in the process of reevaluating the plan of study. So John Gibson and Jim Puckrop so John's in the Polytechnic and Jim Puckrop's in the provost office. We're reevaluating our plan of study for the degree in 3 to try to leverage the AP and dual credit that students bring in and come up with a structure that allows students to be able to declare that they're a degree in 3 student and be able to complete the coursework requirements within the 3 years instead of the 4. There are students that choose to do the degree in 3 without officially designating themselves as a degree in 3 student. And we attempt to be supportive of that. We are resource limited in our flight labs and our sim labs, so we have to be very careful and when we allow students to take classes, especially with some requirements for other students that change the degree into our flight program and when they are able to fly. So if you want to have full and complete support and assurance that you're going to be able to get the classes that you want, it's important that you do designate yourself as a degree in 3 student. And as I said, right now we're in the process. We just met last Friday to revision what that plan of study looks like, and we're hoping to have a structure set before the fall semester begins. If you're interested in the degree in 3, talk with your academic advisor, and they'll be able to help you walk through the process to decide whether it's something for you, and then go through the mechanics of you designating that you are an official degree in 3 student.
Thank you. Lucero, can you address for this fall, when students come in, when will they be assigned their aircraft and flight instructor?
Yeah, so once we have the final enrollment of all the students that will actually be coming to Purdue, we start the scheduling process. Our goal is to have your slot and your instructor paired within that first week of the semester, so that way you can get started right away.
Thank you. And continuing, how many average flight hours do students get And on average, how long after graduation do students receive an R-ATP?
So for the first question, so as far as average hours, if you're talking about a week, that'll depend on other factors like weather, whether that will let you fly all, like I said, the minimum 3 times that you're scheduled with your instructor. However, if you're talking about like a semester for a student, you would be flying the hours that you have to meet for the flight course. So for example, some of our flight courses are 40 total hours that you have to get done in a semester. So you'd have to complete those 40 hours in that semester. And then as you progress through the courses, you would continue getting those flight times. If you then decide to become a flight instructor after you get your commercial certificate and you get your certified flight instructor certificate, you can then earn more flight hours. So by the time you graduate at your 4-year mark, assuming you're a 4-year degree plan, you could have probably somewhere around 500 hours, I would say. It could be higher. It depends on all the different activities you could be doing, whether you're not only flight instructing here at Purdue University, maybe you're also working at the FBO or some other FBO in the area, or maybe you have another job like parachute jumping. There's a few airports in our vicinity that do parachute jumping, so maybe you're a pilot with them, or you do some other type of flying where that number could be higher. It really depends on what your drive is, what you're willing to go out and look for, aside from just being here at Purdue University. As far as how long it takes for someone to get an R-ATP, I'm not sure on that answer actually. I don't know if Mike or Brian, you have any insight on that, but I honestly don't know. If you leave here with us between around the 500 hours, that means you need another 500. So depending on how you get that time will, depend on how long it takes you.
Brian or Mike, do you have an answer
Yeah,
to
I
that
mean,
potentially?
Lucero's correct. It depends on how prolific of an instructor you are. So there are some flight operations in Texas and Florida and others that you can do 150 hours a month. So operating out of those operations, you're going to be 3-4 months down the road. I would say the typical footprint is a year after graduation for you to build the time necessary. And like I said, it does depend on how prolific you are. As Lucero mentioned, for those that get their CFI in the year between their sophomore and junior year, if you go back home or even not home, if you go someplace over the summers that is a fairly prolific operation of flight instructing, you can do 200, 300 hours in that summer. We've had graduates that graduate with 1,000 hours and have their restricted ATP requirements. They're the exception. I would say it's not uncommon to see students with 700 hours. I think Lucero's right that the average typical is 500. It also depends on how much of a social life you want to have while you're here at Purdue. Is flight time that you're going to be able to accrue.
And can I add to that, Vicki?
Absolutely.
Oh, I just want to say, because I know we've been talking about a flight instructor and how you being a flight instructor can get you hours. That is not the only way you can get hours. It is probably one of the fastest ways to get flight hours, but it's not the only way. There are other opportunities where if you just don't feel like you want to be a flight instructor, you don't want to have to instruct for whatever your reasons are, right? Not everybody's made to be a flight instructor. There are other options that you can do.
Thank you. Mike, can you talk about what types of connections to industry partners we have for our students? Long conversation.
So we have several agreements that are kind of formalized with different carriers. Probably the most recent one we just signed was with United Airlines and the Aviate program. We just re-signed our agreement with Republic and down in Indianapolis. American, the cadet program with the 3 affiliates that are working with them. And we are talking to a couple of other carriers that want to do more formal bridge programs. But the state of the industry today is that most of our students have at least 2 or 3 opportunities to fly once they hit that R-ATP type number. COVID has kind of slowed down what the carriers were doing prior, but as I mentioned earlier, they are all coming back and chatting with us about ways. You know, some of the programs would actually come to campus and talk to you as a sophomore and create some an ambassador program. So you would be kind of a spokesperson for that particular certificate. And some of the programs offered actual incentive, monetary incentive for additional hours earned until you reach the hiring threshold of 1,000 hours for the 121 R-ATP type certificates. The newest ones to the table lately have been corporate. We're seeing more interest, conversation from the folks like NetJets and Flight Options, but the smaller single ship corporate operators who are having a challenge keeping FOs are now actually chatting a little bit more. We found in the corporate space, the insurance requirements tends to be the pacing item on that, as far as having people with 500 hours fly co-pilot on the business jets. But that is starting to change as we're moving forward. So a couple of freight airlines, and we have one direct hire into a major airlines. Frontier Airlines has taken folks with R-ATP, 1,000-hour mins. We're up to 18 or 19 graduates in the last 3 years that have gone through the curriculum, reached their hiring thresholds, and then have gone straight to Frontier and have been successful in the Airbus A320 program. And that has raised the attention to several other carriers. And so some other either Airbus or Boeing operators are now looking to create similar pathways to go direct into those as airplane in entry-level fleets, if you can believe a Boeing or a bus is an entry-level airplane. In addition to the ERJ and CRJ, and which are equally as sophisticated. So you have choices, quality of life, where do you want to live, platforms you want to fly. All these things are available to us now. So it's really an exciting time.
Piggybacking off of that, Mike, do any airlines ever offer opportunities to help students finish their remaining hours to reach that RATP?
They're getting more and more creative. So at the moment, they have, well, you have programs like Southwest has Destination 225. You got Federal Express has Purple Runway. You have, all these different programs, and they are essentially pathway programs, and they will assist with either placing you in a 135 operator so that you can fly something multi-engine and build time that way, or they will assist in placing you in a flight school if you have your CFI to build time that way. So they are offering pathways and mechanisms to assist. So they have agreements with these 135 airlines that they know that the pilots are coming to them. They'll be there for several months, and then they're going to go on to the major. And what that does is help them in their manpower planning. So they know what they have coming in, but they have a better handle on what's going out. So that's the those are some of the things that are happening today in the industry.
Thank you. So moving on to Raquel and then Brent, what kind of relationships do you have with your professors, and how do they support your learning in lectures and labs?
Yeah, so instructors, faculty in our school, they're amazing. Honestly, couldn't say anything better about them. They're always willing to help no matter what. I can't say there's ever been a time where I've emailed a professor and haven't gotten a response within a day. Most of the time, it'll be within an hour or two that you've got a response back from them. And they're telling you either tips and tricks for an assignment that you didn't understand, or they're telling you times that they're available for you to come in and meet with them before the next class period. So overall, like, faculty are always willing to help students, and they really are there to make sure that you succeed. I think there's always a stigma about going and asking for help, but if there is anything you're struggling with, faculty is there to help you. They want you to succeed. They want you to be able to do what you want to do in the future. So questions are always welcomed.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I'll say there hasn't been a single time I've either gone into office hours or emailed to meet up with the professor and not only had that set up really quickly, but it not have been 150% worth my time. We're a small enough program, especially within the School of Aviation, that professors are able to really take a vested interest in us. And I genuinely feel like every single one of my professors here has cared about me and doing well. And kind of like Professor Dillman was saying, as much as I wanted to learn, they were going to be there to help me learn. I've actually been able to develop pretty good relationships with a few of my professors, even after classes end and whatnot. And really good industry connections and kind of just keeping up to date with that and with them. Really good opportunities, I'd say.
Thank you. What have been your favorite aspects of being a professional flight major? Raquel?
I mean, flying planes is pretty cool. I'd say that's a pretty big pro. But aside from that, I think one of the best things about it is the fact that our program isn't massive. You really get to know the people that you're going to classes with, and it's really an environment where people want to help you succeed. So you can have classmates that you're going to class with, you've probably never seen them before, but then all of a sudden you're in a class with them. You guys are making study groups and you might not understand something, but then they're there and they really get this topic and they're there to help you. And I think that's one of the best things about Purdue is just the fact that everyone there is a team. It really becomes a small family when everyone is in class together and you get to know one another. And Brent and we got to know each other pretty well through other things as well. So it's not just within your class, it's within all 4 classes that you get to know people too.
Yeah. Raquel said it, flying airplanes first and foremost. I had my freshman, sophomore year, I had roommates in engineering and in econ, and they're doing stat labs. And my lab was taking an airplane and flying down the coast of Lake Michigan, seeing the lake, doing pattern work at Benton Harbor and coming back. So, a few-hour lab, and I went to Michigan. Really can't beat that. But also, and this may seem a little backwards, but one of the best things about ProFlight at Purdue is nothing to do with aviation, but the fact that I'm still a college student. I came straight out of high school. I wanted to do aviation. I wanted to pursue an aviation degree, but I'm still at Purdue because we're a relatively small program within the big undergraduate umbrella of Purdue. We have Big Ten sports, and we have all of the student organizations on main campus. And when I go take an English class or a poli-sci class, I'm taking them in their respective departments and things like that. So I'm as much a college student as I want to be. I have friends and roommates that aren't in ProFlight or in aviation majors at all. But there's also very, very strong and healthy, thriving community within aviation as well. So really was able to strike that balance.
Thank you. And Brent, piggybacking off of that, Alexander Taylor would like to know, what is it like to fly in the winter in Indiana? And can you feel the difference in power with the colder weather?
Raquel's from California.
Indiana.
I'm from Hawaii. So we both did our private pilot licenses at home. So yeah, it's very different. And seeing the airplane generate above its rated horsepower, rated power was a first for me for sure. It's a really good experience. When I was doing my private pilot, I flew 23 days straight at home without having to cancel for weather once. So weather as kind of a whole topic, I wasn't my strong suit until I came to Purdue. So it really, I think, built a more robust pilot out of me, facing go, no-go decisions and dealing with things like icing and cloud levels and things like that. Indiana really gives us the full force of Mother Nature at times so that we're comfortable with it and familiar with it and really know how to make a go, no-go decision when it comes to flying and things like that.
I 1000% agree with Brent on that one. If I can jump in real quick.
Absolutely.
But I know for a fact, training in California, getting my private out there. When I got to Purdue, I had no idea what a weather briefing was. Like, as long as I went to the airport and there was no marine layer, I was like, it's a good day to fly. Cool. So definitely coming out here, it really gives you that experience with all kinds of weather, because you've got the super hot fall, and then all of a sudden it's like 20 degrees and you're flying out here. So it really does give you that opportunity to experience all kinds of weather. It makes you a better pilot because you're having to make decisions and look at the big picture of what's happening in the area around you. And I think that's something that's super beneficial about Purdue's weather environment.
Thank you. So I also want to talk to the students, Raquel and then Brent. What organizations are you involved in that are related to your major, and then also outside of that major?
Yeah, so within aviation, I'm involved with a couple of different clubs. First one I'll talk about is Women in Aviation. That's been a club that I've loved being a part of. It provides a really good opportunity to network within the industry, as well as see different parts of industry you might not normally see. So actually recently, a couple weekends ago, I got to go up to O'Hare and got to see the United facilities up there. I got to see the behind the scenes of what was happening with people within network operations. And we got to go up to the ramp control tower and see what operations were happening up there. And I think that was something that was super beneficial, is just being able to see what happens outside of the flight operations and realize that there's so much more involved with it. And then also have the opportunity to go down to Nashville over spring break for the Women in Aviation Conference, which is also going to be a great opportunity to meet people within the industry, hear more about internship opportunities like we were talking about earlier. So that's one thing I've loved about Women in Aviation. Also, I'm involved with Aviation Ambassadors, which were those lovely people that you get to talk to when you come tour Purdue. That's also a great opportunity just to be a part of the school as a whole and kind of stay up to date with what's happening in it, as well as Purdue Professional Pilots. That's another club, great networking opportunity as well. I'll leave some things for Brent to talk about, but outside of aviation clubs, I've also decided to join some like art clubs on campus. We have over 1,000 student organizations, so really anything that you're interested in, there's going to be a club on campus for it. There's really no limit to what you could get involved with.
Yeah, kind of mirroring off of what Raquel said, she covered a lot of the aviation stuff really good. Purdue Professional Pilots is also one that I'm involved in. You know, largely a networking club. They'll before every career fair, they will bring in pilots and recruiters from different airlines, and they just have a resume night where you bring in your resume and you workshop that to get ready for the career fair. They'll do trips to Republic and FedEx and to United. They have a really cool like mentor program where you know, the airlines and aviation can be a really daunting industry if you didn't kind of grow up in it. So they'll pair you actually with a mentor that's a pilot at a major airline, and it's really informal relationship, just kind of being able to talk to them and, you know, just check in once a month or something. They're a good resource to ask questions about what goes on in the Part 121 world and kind of the lifestyle and things like that as you navigate navigate your aviation career. Additionally, I'm on the executive board for Purdue Aviation Day, which is going to happen in early April. And that's a almost completely student-run fly-in event. So a lot of airlines will fly in their airliners for the day, and the military brings in a bunch of coal metal as well as a bunch of smaller airplanes will fly in for breakfast in the morning. We're expecting around 10,000 people to show up at our airport this year, and really just kind of an open house and a great time all around to be around airplanes and enjoy what we're all doing. I'm also a founding board member for PAPA, which is Professional Asian Pilots Association. So we're starting the second ever collegiate chapter here at Purdue this year.
Thank you. So Brian, what career paths do you see most graduates pursuing from your area?
Well, I think the predominant career path is, you know, graduation, flight instructing, and then going to a regional airline or a major, you know, and opportunities that it avails themselves. We're trying to certainly open up more opportunities to straight to the major sort of framework, but going to the airlines would be the predominant path. I think evenly split beyond that is military and corporate. You know, the number of students that leave Purdue and then go into a military responsibility for either serving their 20 or serving their time to meet the requirements for the scholarship that they were able to receive while here at Purdue, is another path, and then corporate on their side. We do have a certain number of students, myself included, Lucero as well at this point, that are graduates from the program that go into academia, that become professional flight instructors. We view, at least Purdue, we view that that's an opportunity, an area that is affords itself for a certain lifestyle and capability of being at home and having all the blessings of that on a continuous basis, as well as being able to make a fair return as far as financially is concerned. So that's an area that is seeing some unique opportunities right now. Whether it has longevity for the future, 20, 30 years down the road, we'll have to see. But I would say largely going to the airlines, followed closely by military and corporate would be the answer to that.
Thank you. Brent and then Raquel, what are your career goals?
Pretty much like Professor Dillman outlined for me. I'm pretty cookie cutter. I'm going through the pro flight program. I'm flight instructing right now, and my goal is to hop on with an airline pretty much as soon as I can. I will add, though, I have friends that are going into the corporate world, or interested in medevac flying, bush flying, all sorts of things. I always say that aviation has a little corner for you wherever you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be airlines, or even the corporate world of aviation. And there are a lot of people like that at Purdue too.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same as Brent, going through the program, hoping to flight instruct. And then my plan has always been to head over to an airline, but recently I've been looking a lot more into business aviation and the opportunities that that sector has to offer. So I think coming to Purdue really opened my eyes to the other opportunities that there are within aviation, rather than just heading straight to the airlines.
Excellent. Brent, something I thought you might add to that piece was about the story you were telling us earlier before we started. Can you talk a little bit about your family and the background that it has with Purdue and
Yeah.
aviation?
I always say everyone has an aviation story, right? Everyone's here for a reason. Aviation is usually a calling. For me, it was genetic. I'm a third generation pilot, actually. My mom graduated from the pro flight program way back in the day. And she's a second generation captain at Hawaiian Airlines, and I'm hoping to make it third generation one day as well.
Excellent. Thank you. We're getting close to the 8 o'clock hour. If it is okay with my panelists, we do have a few follow-up questions from some people. Is that okay if we go a little bit longer?
Sure.
Thank you. So Ryan Agan would like to know, do airlines or commercial partners ever offer any kind of financial aid to help students offset costs of flight fees? Mike?
Not at this time. There are two dominant models in the world. If you were on the other side of the pond, you might be sponsored. A lot of times the airlines will sponsor cadets through a career program. In the United States, essentially is a free agent nation, which means you fund your own training, and then you are able to take your certificates and apply to any airline that you want to. So there's no obligation to remain on a certificate for the payback. Having said that, there are beginning chats with airlines trying to figure out how to lower the cost. One of the big barriers to the industry is the cost of learning how to fly, and there is much discussion and debate about how to do that. The traditional loans, you could get a loan to be a med school, and you can go to loan to be a pilot, and the return on investment on a pilot is much higher than a return on investment, and much faster than a return on investment than med school at this point in time. And the banks and some of the capital markets are starting to realize that. And having said that, there are other scholarship programs and things, but they're just trying to sort that out right now to figure out how to do that and make it, to get the scale and the mass of people that they need coming forward.
Thank you. So going back to a little bit about our curriculum, So if a student has done pre-calc honors, AP calculus, as well as AP physics, will they have to repeat those courses related to those again? Brian?
Yeah, so that's a very specific question. The easiest way to answer that is twofold. If you go to College Board, go to the website College Board, select the AP course that you took a test for, select Purdue University, and it will tell you what score you need to receive on the AP exam and what course it will translate into here at Purdue. You need to take that information as far as the course is concerned and look at our plan of study and determine whether we require that course in our plan of study. If we do, it just drops in, plug and chug. If we don't require that course within our plan of study, then you have to look for the proper hole to fit that course. And that's something that really your advisor would have the best advice concerning where to plug that. We do have 6 credits of free elective within our plan of study. So that is kind of the last, fail safe as far as where you can put courses, but it's only 6 credits, which would be 2 courses essentially, that you could put into our plan of study to meet the requirements for graduation. While I'm at it, it's a similar process for dual credit. So if you took courses at your high school that are dual credit with a community college or some other location, Purdue University has an equivalency calculator essentially. So if you look at it, it's called a transfer credit search engine or transfer credit. If you just go to Purdue University and search transfer credit, there'll be a website where you input the course that you took at the college you took it, and it will show how it transfers in. If it transfers in as an AT or any other course, PHYS for physics and then a number, that's a direct equivalency to those courses here at Purdue. If there isn't a direct equivalency, then it will show up as AT1XXXX. That means it's undistributed credit. That means you have to figure out where to put that. And again, the advisors would be the best source of information concerning what is the best solution for each student and their plan of study.
Thank you. And a follow-up to the degree in 3. If a student comes in with their private pilot license and also lots of credit, AP, IB, whatever, is that a good combo to seek out that degree in 3? Brian?
Yeah, it's always options. There's opportunities and leaving your options open. So I would certainly consider it. Again, talking with the advisors would be the best source of information concerning whether it's a good fit. I guess I should have mentioned, really, the degree in 3 only works if you do have your private before you come here. If you don't have your private before you come, it's an extra semester that you have to take. You could fit it in if you took some classes in the summer, but again, it depends on how many credits you need to fill out the entire 120 credits, which are required for our plan of study.
Excellent, thank you. So Francis Bunting would like to know, is pursuing a minor doable as a professional flight major? Would Brent like to answer that question and then follow up with Raquel?
Yes, absolutely. I have friends that are doing supply chain logistics minors. So just outside of the School of Aviation, I have a friend that's just doing a minor in English, I think, because he finds that interesting. And also within the School of Aviation, we do offer a minor in unmanned aerial systems, and I know numerous people that are adding the UAS minor onto their pro flight degree. It actually fits in really well because, as we were talking about with the thematic area, any of the university minors, I believe, will satisfy that. So it's almost accounted for in our plan of study, I'll say, actually.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Brent. Another common major that I see a lot of people in professional flight doing is the Earth and Atmospheric Planetary Sciences minor, because that's obviously a lot of weather. So that really helps with professional flight, as you could probably expect. So that's a very popular one that a lot of people like to pursue as well.
Excellent, thank you. So staying with the 2 students, what advice do you have for future professional flight students to be successful? Raquel?
Put in the time to do your work. I would say that a lot of times you're a college student, you want to go out and have fun. But the work that you'll get within our school is all going to be work that helps you. I don't think I've ever had an assignment that was purely busy work. Everything is meant to help you grow within your knowledge as a pilot. And in the moment, you might not want to do it, but when you look back on it, you'll realize how much information that actually kind of fed you with and how much you can apply that now in the future when you look back on it and you're like, oh, I hated that, but now it's actually really useful for me.
Yeah. I always say it's a labor of love, right? Like I was saying, everyone's in aviation for a reason. So labor away, you'll love it. May hate it at times, but it's always golden at the end of it. And work hard, play hard too. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we can't have fun and things like that too. And working with your instructors too, put in extra slots and things like that during the week. We have the option of flying extra during the week as long as the aircraft and instructor schedules kind of align to make that happen. My freshman year, I finished my first flight course before Halloween, I believe. So that gave me at least a month of the semester. I was just done, no flying. That meant I got to take finals week without having to worry about flying at all and things like that too. So put in the work, labor of love. But we all love doing it. That's why we're here. So it's worth it.
Excellent. Thank you. So Mike and Brian, we have multiple people asking a variation of the question of how many students come into professional flight, how many applications we've had, what are we kind of looking for? So numbers as always. So can you talk a little bit about how we come up with our numbers and what we're looking for a little bit?
You want to take that, Brian? Or you want me to?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a formula that we factor in weather and aircraft maintenance and scheduling and daylight savings time and a whole bunch of other factors. And based upon the aircraft that we have that Lucero mentioned earlier, we target to have 100 students coming in as a freshman cohort. Our expectation is about half of them will have their private and half of them will not. And then those students would flow through our plan of study in essentially groups of 50. So that's our target. So we give that number to the Office of Admissions, and then they handle everything to be able to get us that number. Now, the number of applications, and these are the numbers that I've heard, we had 1,070 applications for this coming cycle for fall of 2022. The Office of Admissions will admit more than the 100 that we want in order to yield that number. The number I heard was about 170. I also heard 190. So I'm not sure where the number really is, but it's somewhere in that number. They know that based upon several factors, proximity to home, cost of the flight program, in different factors, students that have parents that went to college in other locations, you have a higher or lesser likelihood to accept Purdue. And the yield they're looking for that we're looking for at least is the 100. We've asked them to target 100 for the past 3 years. Well, this will be the 4th year. In the first year, they hit in the mid 80s. The second year, they hit in the low 90s. Last year, they hit 104. So I tend to believe that the Office of Admissions knows what they're doing. There is almost a little bit of panic just in case all 180 do accept to come to Purdue. But if that happens, that's a good problem to have, right? We'll get more airplanes, we'll get more instructors, and we'll figure out how to make it work.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say, at the end of the day, it's a resource equation. Airplanes and airspace and instructors. Those are the 3 variables.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we do have a little bit of a kudos that we can express here. So Beth Pagan did write that Brian Dillman, we met you at the Purdue for Me Day, and the information you provided was very informational, by far the best of any college we have visited, and there were many. So kudos to Purdue. So thank you.
Well, there you go. There you go. I should get a raise, right? Let's put that in.
Good job, Brian.
So with that, we are going to wrap up our discussion tonight. Thank you again to our viewers for joining us and submitting questions. And we hope you gained some good insight about the professional flight major in Purdue School of Aviation and Transportation Technology. Thank you again to our awesome panelists for joining us and sharing their insight and experiences as well. And thanks as well to John, our technical director, for all the behind the scenes work. It's very difficult, especially with me who's technology challenged. As I mentioned before, please feel free to send us an email at techrecruit@purdue.edu if you have any additional questions or if we did not get to your question for us about the school, Polytechnic, or Purdue. If you haven't already joined us for one of our admitted student information sessions or student-to-student chats, we still have several of those coming up in the near future. In addition to the student life-focused YouTube broadcast coming up on April 13th for all students admitted to Polytechnic majors, you can find information for all those engagement opportunities on our admitted student information page. You can watch this broadcast again by going to polytechnic.purdue.edu/live. We want to invite you to tune in for our broadcast tomorrow night, March 1st, 2022, titled Women in Technology. It's especially for all young women admitted to majors in the Polytechnic. And on March 8th, we will have another broadcast about all of the other majors in aviation technology, all of the majors other than professional flight. And just a quick reminder, your deadline to accept your offer of admission is May 1st. Thank you all again for joining us and have a great rest of your night and boiler up.